Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review From Within, a movie that gives certain people a curse throughout a town because we have this witchcraft family that is just be hated and feared within a town. So they decide, well, hey, I'm going to go on and I'm going to leash this curse out into this town to wipe the whole town out. Because, yeah, if they don't really like me and like I am just to have to put up with them, well, there's one less way to have to put up with them is to just have them go and be cursed, and they get this ghostly spirit of a thing that continues to follow them that looks just like them and is trying to figure out ways for them to murder themselves. But really, like, that's what it seems on pen to paper. It just looks like a string of people just murdering themselves. But what we come to find out is the closer and closer this cursed ghostly thing gets to said victim, and again, the ghostly cursed thing and victim, they look exactly the same, even like this at some points. uh we go on to have the victim start to lose control of its own body to the point to where the ghost starts to take control of said victim and figures out weapons nearby to do this person in. So that way it could be done with killing this person. So that way when uh said whoever is in a radius nearby of said person and finds their dead body, they then go on and become the very next person who is going to get ghostly curse thing follow after them and eventually go on and scare them enough to eventually kill them next. So we have a Romeo and Juliet story going on within this bit of film. We have Aiden, we have Lindsay here. Lindsay will come to find is to be the final girl of film. And so Lindsay will stubbornly, instead of easily falling for Dylan, who is the son of a pastor, Lindsay will go on and be more rebellious and find interest in a guy named Aiden. A guy that, when you hear him talk, seemingly does not give an F about anything. And also, with his hair just placed the way it does, it's just like very disheveled. But so I guess that is to be the one interesting thing that Lindsay just latches on to. So Lindsay finds Aiden so interesting up until the point to where she starts to get cursed. And so Lindsay is to find Aiden even more interesting because she's cursed, to see, like, hey, since your family knows a thing or two about witchcraft, how about you reverse this curse so you can stop it from happening so I don't die? How about that? And so Aiden's like, well, like, I could probably just splash some and touch your body all over the place to just have you just get some armor on you. But, like, really trying to reverse the curse is kind of difficult. Uh, and so Aiden is going to go on and try up until the point to where it's really necessary for him to go on and really break this curse, because he's the only one really left of his family that can go on and possibly do so. But then we also have Dylan. Dylan goes on and is to figure out that seemingly all of these deaths have some connection with Aiden's family. So Dylan decides that he wants to get this lynch mob together and decides to eventually kill off all of Aiden's family. Uh, the only person that seems to be left besides Aiden is to be Sadie, Aiden's cousin. So we have, of course, also in the beginning of in the early stages of this film, we come to find out that this town in the past had gone on to kill Aiden's family members. uh, his parents because of accusations of witchcraft, and also there seems to have been Aiden's father who had gotten drowned, and we'll come to find how that was to have gone in play within the story. Which, if you want to check that out, I will go on and give you a means to be able to do so. So, I will state that From Within is difficult to find, but I will give you the exact place for you to be able to find it so you can watch it yourself. It's only an hour and 20 minutes, so if anything, you may feel that this movie, with its runtime, could be just enough to just be like, well, okay, well, like I could probably just put up with kind of some of the kind of the weird, um, kind of harder to sell things about this movie because only its runtime. Uh, but anyways, so because there's quite a bit of religion things in here, and there's also the whole self death things of how you find the victims, and that could be really something hard to sell for people, whatever. Just like I would go on and say, From Within really had some potential for me. I'm just so defeated by like I'm just like, man, I would rather fight to say something is good rather than take the time having to describe how bad a film is. Because I feel that trying to be positive out trumps um, therapeutically getting a movie that I'm like, God, this movie sucked out of my just thought process and talking and whatever, so I can just get it off my chest. Um, so I'd rather just like be like, man, there's just something that I just saw in this. Uh, but so this movie was to go on, and if I haven't said already, to remind me of movies like uh, It Follows, really very much like this movie, and It Follows are kind of very similar. So if you've seen It Follows, you may like this film. Uh, I've gone on to also see Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and I can't help but think that quasi some ballparkingly thing similar in some ways. I would also go on to mention there's someone inside the house, and this movie goes on and has a slasher killer that has the face of the victim it's going after, and I thought that that was actually really interesting. I think that there's one other movie that I was Final Destination. Like how like death is trying to go after these people and trying to find anything within the home to try to kill. Like Final Destination in this movie just kind of feels very similar, even to the point to where we also go on and we find the victims of this death thing in Final Destination, that it looks like it's to either be accidental deaths or to be self harm deaths. It looks like, but really it's just death trying to make sure that the people that he chose to die did die, or he or she, whoever death really is. I don't have really an idea, or don't want to go on and make any judgments. But anyways, so anyways, with that said, I think it's just time to just push into what I'm going to in the future review, and probably have you really question it, because you're probably like, "What the movie was this?" Uh, as well as also any of the things I'm going to review in the future or past or whatever. People can have those judgments, but what have you. I just need content to do on a daily basis, and when really looking at it, there's probably several times where I probably should second guess everything that I'm doing or reviewing or whatever. But if I did that, then I would probably very rarely have content that goes out. So I just need to just keep doing this stuff. So I hope people can find something from out of these movies that they or shows that they'll enjoy. Um, but I know it's gonna be harder to always sell them. So, but maybe that's just the one thing that I just enjoy anyways. So, future reviews, so I can state those now. So, I have during the time I was away, just accidentally just started to watch some gameplay of some things. And I knew that was kind of a slippery slope because immediately there's some gameplays that I'm like, this gameplay was really cool. Is there a movie that is to be similar to that? And when I'm to first say what this gameplay was, you're going to immediately thinking like, oh, hey, there's a movie franchise that ties into that. He's going to watch that, right? And I'll be like, no. Because I've already kind of watched some of those movies and it went nowhere. Um, because the title which I'm talking about is Resident Evil. And it also, I think there's a possibility that they're going to reboot Resident Evil again, um, either in the video games or quite possibly um, the movie franchise. I'm just to be like, come on, man. Like, if anything, whatever you do with Resident Evil, it's just going to come out very goofy anyway. So I don't think that this Resident Evil is going to be the one that really is to be the definitive. Like, yeah, you got to see this one. But I could be surprised, because you can only go to that well so many times now. But anyways, so uh, I was going on and watching Game Grumps play some Resident Evil, uh, like 1 through 8, because they kind of sporadically just kind of randomly played some of them, but not all of them. And even they didn't complete half of them that they even start. Yeah. So I was just like, okay, I'll just kind of watch this. However, but luckily they fully did play Resident Evil 8 Village. And so I was like, okay, like this game looks really cool and it has lichens in it. Ooh, wow. So I was to go on and find something that was similar to Resident Evil 8. That didn't end up being a werewolf movie. I still always would want to go on and review this werewolf movie called Dog Soldiers, even though I'm just like, I think I started Dog Soldiers once. I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna just really. I don't know. Um, I got into the later half of Dog Soldiers once, and I thought, ooh, this is a really interesting movie. But I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy it as a whole now that I've gone on to realize that I'm gonna watch it from start to finish. But anyways, I do like Dog Soldiers. But anyways, so Uh, but I'm thinking about watching this movie called The Brood. This movie could be so bad it's good. From what I've kind of sliveringly watched bits and pieces of it, to eventually get thumbnail and background picture, because I try to do those ahead of time. Uh, so I've kind of barely seen bits and pieces of the movie, and I don't know about this one. But if anything, I've watched so many weird films that I might as well just continue on my path of watching more weird films. Uh, but also, I'm going on to always just have my favorite game series always be Elder Scrolls Skyrim. And when looking at like, oh, hey, is there movies that are similar to that? And no, I'm not watching Warcraft because I think at some point I did watch Warcraft. Or did I review Warcraft? I'll have to go on and I'll have to look into that. I don't think I ever did, but I think it was a possibility of me contemplating reviewing Warcraft. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. If people were to find that I did review Warcraft, I have watched it regardless. So if I had reviewed it or haven't, regardless, it's there. Or that I know of that movie. But anyways, I'm not reviewing Warcraft. That's not what's gonna happen. Even if I had reviewed it. But anyways, so my choices that might be somehow similar to Elder Scrolls Skyrim is a film called Dragon Slayer that was done in the 80s. Never seen it before. I've seen little clips now of it so that we can get thumbnails and whatever. Um, but yeah, like that could go on and be, I think, a really interesting movie, regardless of how it actually plays out. It has something to do with magic and wizards and whatever, so I'm like, cool. Uh, but yeah, I've never really seen it in my life. I also am going on and looking at a Carl Urban movie called Pathfinder. That seems to be a movie that looks like it's about Native Americans and looks like Vikings. I don't know. Um, I don't know exactly what's going on in the film, but eventually I might find it intriguing enough to check it out. Uh, it kind of reminds me of Conan the Barbarian, so that's probably why I'm looking into it. I don't know. Whatever. Um, but Pathfinder, I think, is also based off a video game, so I don't think I could just do anything wrong with at least checking those things kind of out. I don't know. But regardless, those things will eventually exist on the channel. Let me know in the comments below what is to be your favorite movie that is based off of a video game, because that might be something I might check out in the future. Also, let me know what is to be your favorite horror movie, or well, probably horror movie because I think I just keep just doing movies on this thing. I kind of have given up doing anything with shows at this point. Even though logically, there are probably a lot of shows that could probably do very well on views and what have you, and I've kind of given up on all that. Uh, I always still wanted to go back to Power Rangers. I really even had plans put in play that I did have certain outfits and certain this and that. I always wanted to go also into doing Star Trek at some point. I really did. But I just had uh, like I had ideas for certain outfits that I plan to wear, but like they're still on a waiting list of things because I don't really have them right now. If that makes sense to anybody, and probably by the time that I probably get them, I may not even know if I'll get them. So yeah, um, that's the sucky thing that goes on with Timu is just you gotta grind for a bajillion years, and probably by the time you actually get to a point where you can get said item, you don't know if actually it's going to be in stock or not. So you're just like, just playing by ear or whatever. But anyways, so those could quite possibly be at some point some future reviews. I have no idea when I'm going to eventually get to them, but eventually they will happen. I hope. Regardless of how like people are just like seriously, that's going to be the you do in the future. Click and I get it. But I'm trying to find some really interesting movies and shows. That's what I'm trying to do. And I hope people will be interested in any of those things in the future. So, with that said, let's get into pausing this video here and let's have me rattle off what everything entails within the rest of this movie and then hopefully getting this as an upload. Uh, Other than that, anybody who is just kind of interested in just chatting about a movie or whatever that they've kind of seen recently, maybe it was a new review, maybe it was a new review, a new release, or maybe it was just something that was to be like a number of decades old. Because at some point also, I feel that I want to just kind of spread my wings and just try to find what interests people the most, so that way I can go on and view that as well to just try and uh, get something new on the channel that I probably may have not gone on and gone into yet. So that could be fun, hopefully. Or that'll just clickbait people into just dropping a comment down, because maybe that'll help out the video. But regardless, thank you for watching this video because that does really help. So with that said, uh, let's go on. Let's pause this here and I'll describe the film. Alright, spoilers everybody. So the very beginning of the film we have both Sean and both Natalie, and they're sitting down on this grass. And so we have Natalie that turns to Sean, it's like, are you sure you want to do this? And then the very next thing after a certain bit of dialogue that transpires is that Sean takes a gun to his face, pulls the trigger, and dies. So Sean, of course, was to be part of this witchcraft family. And he was to have been the one, after all is said and done, after all the spells are to be casted and whatever, is to have been the one who starts off this curse. And Natalie seems to be fine with being patient zero, as she, I guess, didn't think that she would end up being that because she didn't think it would go on and affect her, but it did. So, because she was the only one nearby who saw Sean die. So, Sean dies. We end up getting the title screen from within, and we end up getting shots uh, all around this town. So, we have both Trish and her daughter, Lindsay, that is in Bernard's shop. They're going on and they're talking about the style, they're talking about the dress and this and that. So and they're talking about how like Lindsay should not go on and show too much skin, yada yada yada. So as they're trying to figure out what exactly to get Lindsay uh, for clothing, all of a sudden we have Natalie that bursts into the shop. Lindsay is going on and she's telling these people how she's being followed, and Bernard is asking Natalie, it's like, well, hey, whose blood is this? And Natalie's like, well, it's not my blood, it's Sean's. Bernard, I believe, is Natalie's father. So that's why Natalie goes to Bernard's shop. So Natalie tells Bernard how Sean had shot himself. And so Bernard tells Trish to watch the door as both Bernard and Natalie go back into the back room. And so Bernard realizes that Natalie is in some kind of shock. So, like, yeah, just kind of put her in the back of this room and just kind of lock the door and hope that that's safe enough to just leave her there. Lindsay ends up going on and looking at Natalie. So, Bernard is calling the police because Bernard is to just like, well, hey, my daughter is getting followed, and yeah, so like I'm gonna do the right thing and just call the police, hoping that whoever this is gonna go away. Even though, yeah, it doesn't quite work that way when you're cursed. But anyways, so they're assuming that this guy or whoever this thing is going to just appear seemingly in front of the store. But it's, yeah, it's a ghost. It's not going to work that way. So what ends up happening is that Natalie ends up getting locked in this room with this ghostly spirit, and as they try to figure out a way to knock this door down to find Natalie dead with the scissors in her body, we go on to find that since Bernard is to be the first one that finds Natalie dead, that Bernard is going to be next. So we have Aiden that is to be outside of this store. he goes on to eventually ask the Sheriff Cooper, uh, if the girl inside had gone on to self-death, and the sheriff goes on and says to Aiden, it's like, well, hey, if we go on and we know anything more about her or your brother, we'll let you know. But if anything, just go on home, Aiden. So Aiden realizes what exactly is probably transpiring here. That eventually the curse had started, and we're not really sure if who exactly within Aiden's family had talked them into doing this thing, or if even Aiden was exactly on board with it. We don't exactly know. Uh, unless the movie may have gone on and kind of just been like, well, maybe the family did kind of consent on it. I don't know. But anyways, so uh, we then have Claire, who is Lindsay's best friend, and Lindsay. The two of them are kind of just uh, talking out about what had happened, and they also end up talking about Romeo and Juliet. So they talk about how Juliet had drinking poison, and that Natalie had stabbed scissors into herself. It's kind of a weird way to go. If anything, a very painful way to go. So Lindsay is to also go on and talk about a book that Natalie had. It's this black book. Come to find out, that book will actually be very important in the later part of the film, because this black book will go on and be their spell book, and will end up being of a way where Aiden is to figure out how to reverse this curse. So they go on and they say how like weird Natalie would dress, like as if she's very emo, or if she has a very dominatrix look to her. Uh, so I guess that is probably the reason for why I guess that this girl should have gone on and died. I don't know. That was very weird. So because I guess she doesn't look like everyone else in town. So we have Lindsay that makes her way home after all this is said and done, and Trish goes to Lindsay's room and tells her that Dylan is downstairs. So Lindsay makes her way to Dylan, and Dylan says to Lindsay, it's like, well, hey, I missed you at Bible class tonight. And so Dylan is going on and saying, like, well, hey, if anything, we all kind of need the good book more so than ever right now for what's kind of going on. And like, I get it. Like, I guess you can go on and kind of I shouldn't be going on and saying anything like this. Like, probably going on and kind of getting people together and talking about a good story like the Bible could probably go on and maybe kind of get a lot of people uh, to maybe get a better morale to where they won't go on and self harm themselves. But again, this is about a curse. Like, no matter what that book says, that Bible says, yeah, like uh, it's not going to be able to stop a curse. So, anyways, so if anything, Dylan goes and says like, well, hey, I can't help it. is trying to get people together. Like, I am a son of a pastor, and Dylan is to also give Lindsay a gift. And the gift, it kind of looks like a little miniature angel. It looks actually pretty cool. Like, I really liked the figurine. That was kind of interesting. So there's the thank yous and the you're welcomes, and then cut to Bernard. Bernard goes on, and he is to, of course, he has had quite a day, and so he goes on to start to turn off the power in his store, and he thinks that someone is to be left in the store. Bernard tries to tell the person, "Hey, we're closed," and then Bernard doesn't see where the shopper is as he turns the light back on. So he's like, "Hello?" No one answers. So Bernard just probably thinks that he's seen things, so he just decides to start to turn the power back off. And his doppelganger, his curse, appears in the darkness. Shortly thereafter, Bernard starts to the screen just starts to appear just all this like weird visuals of stuff that just kind of briefly just pass through, and we don't really see much of anything that makes any kind of sense. Uh, but we just have to assume that Bernard died, and eventually the person who is going to go on and find his dead body is going to get cursed next. We'll eventually see that Bernard, I think in its back room or somewhere in this store, he ends up to have gone on, and it looked like he's just kind of hanging there. Uh, but yeah, so the person who goes on and sees his body next will go on and get cursed. So we have Trish, Lindsay's mother, who's going on and doing some ironing. And on the news, they're talking about Natalie. So eventually, this all goes on to bring up, of course, uh, Sean's mother, who is to, of course, be in a witchcraft family. And so when they bring up Candace, we have Trish that goes on to state that Candace was a witch, and that's what the town is to go on and accuse Candace of. But Candace had died from basically being burnt at the stake for being accused of witchcraft. And then we'll come to find that the father had gone on to die from drowning. But we'll really find out within this film that Pastor Joe, it seemed, had some intimate uh, goings on uh, with that dad, with Aiden's father, and we'll know that because, of course, Pastor Joe will confide to Dylan, and Dylan will not go on and quickly forgive his father. He'll just say, like, well, the only father I need is the Lord and above and whatever. He'll go on and he'll say, like, he'll say that the only father he needs is God, and that he will go on and basically just reject his own father, his biological father, or dad, his Pastor Joe, that guy. Yeah, you know what I'm saying here. So oh, I guess I should have called them Spindle family, but I know that the last name of the family just started with an S, but I'm like, I don't know. It was Swindle. I didn't want to just get it wrong, so I just was uh to not try to guess what the last name was because wasn't sure what the name was. I didn't have it in front of me. So, but yeah, so Trish is talking to Lindsay about Candace being a witch, and then also it was kind of weird how they were to go on and see how Lindy Natalie was before she died, and that like stuff like that just doesn't come from anywhere. And So really just going on and accusing already, just because Sean and Natalie, Sean and Natalie's interactions between one another, that like yeah, like she was probably under some kind of spell or something before she died. But if anything, they're gonna find out that that spell is gonna be happening quite a bit more on other people. So the reason why Trish is going on and ironing her clothes and then putting them on is because both Trish, Lindsay, and then Roy, what a douchebag that guy is, kind of. Um, yeah, he really is a douchebag. Um, because there's some really awkward moments that Roy gets into where he keeps going on right in front of Lindsay. It's like, yeah, I got a big dick. And I'm like, yeah, we get it. You have a big schwanz. Who cares? But he just keeps going on and on about it. And I'm just like, who cares, Roy? Shut the F up. But yeah. So, uh, Roy is to go on and bring Trish and Lindsay to the church, so they all go. So then here's where we have Pastor Joy, and he goes on and he is to be giving his sermon, and so that happens. Uh, I don't really want to go into the specifics of the sermon because it's kind of your normal sermon if you've ever gone to the church. I've done it a few times in my life, but I'm honestly to go on and for my own personal opinion, just not have it be just an every Sunday thing. Uh, it's just my beliefs. But anyways, I don't want to get into religion stuff because yeah, I just don't. So we have Dylan that honestly gets upset with his own father or his pastor Joe because Dylan is kind of upset how Joe didn't bother to go on and talk much about what is kind of going on in the town. And Joe goes on and states that it's yeah, well, it's a tragic accident. But he doesn't go on and he doesn't go out there and he doesn't bring the mic and want to further go on and talk about it. He just wants to kind of push it under the rug and have people kind of forget about it. And that's what Dylan is kind of off stage, kind of pointing out to Joe how he's just kind of trying to swipe what's going on in the town kind of under the rug. And so uh, Father Joe is telling Dylan to watch his tone and that Joe is to be fully aware of really what this town needs. And so then we go on and we have a girl who I believe is named Molly here. And Molly will go on and make her way into the store as I believe she's a worker there. And Molly will make her way through the store to find Bernard's body hanging, and she'll scream and cry and what have you. And she will go on and be the next victim. I believe it's Molly. At some point, these names of these kind of just smaller characters just kind of quickly get lost by me, but I believe it's Molly. So, uh, we have Roy, Trish, and Lindsay, and they are driving off. And I'm sure we still have Roy who's still talking about his huge swans. And we even have at a point where Roy is to be talking about how he wants uh, certain people uh, to swallow a pair of scissors, and this and that, and he goes very vicious about what he wants to do to certain people in the town, and then Roy turns to Rich. It's like, well, yeah, that's what you like about me, baby. That's what I'm sure you like. And it's like, okay, whatever. So when I get to the good parts, here's where we go on, and we have as Roy drives along, they make it their way into town, where we of course find a ambulance, and guess what they find? They find their way into realizing that now Bernard's dead and that Molly is off in the distance. So now we have Monday. Lindsay's in school and she's looking out her window to see Aiden, who's by this tree. So as Lindsay is with her friend, just kind of walking off, we all of a sudden come to find that uh, someone is running to Lindsay, explaining to her that Dylan is going to fight somebody. Uh, so we come to find that that certain somebody is to actually be Aiden. So Dylan and Aiden are having this conversation here, and we have Dylan that is to assume that Aiden is to worship the devil, and Aiden is to tell Dylan, it's like, well, you're the one who believes in the God and the devil because that's what you believe in. But I don't believe in any of that stuff, so I can just kind of do whatever I want. So eventually, that leads, of course, Dylan, because of Aiden not believing in a god or a devil, to believe that he's going to get punched in the face by Dylan to Aiden's face, and we go on to, of course, have Dylan that says, "Thy pain is thy cleansing." We'll need to go on and remember that because eventually, that line will eventually again be said later on when Aiden goes on and hits Dylan. He'll say the same thing. So Aiden ends up getting beaten up by Dylan. Afterwards, Lindsay is to go on and look at Dylan's body and be like, "Well, hey, like, can I drive you home? Uh, like, can I help you with your wounds? Like anything like this." Lindsay just wants to go on and help Aiden because it seems that Aiden is to be a nice guy. So Aiden will allow Lindsay to drive him home, and we have Aiden that tells Lindsay, "Hey, thank you for helping me." Uh, and Lindsay ends up saying, "Hey, sorry about your brother." So Lindsay knows who exactly this guy is. But it is kind of weird that Aiden turns to her and introduces himself when Lindsay should probably know who he is. But still, like, they like to do the whole introductory thing, anyways. And then eventually, when Lindsay ends up meeting with Sadie, Sadie's like, "Well, I guess we should do the introductory thing also, where we go on and we tell one another who our names are." So we push on here, and so when Aiden goes on and makes his way into the house, uh, after Lindsay and Aiden are kind of outside the car, and it's kind of like this, well, hey, like, like, are you coming in? And you've seen the outside, you might as well see the inside as well. Uh, and Lindsay's like, well, hey, do you have anything for those cuts? And Aiden is like, well, yeah, inside I do. So Aiden goes on and gets his first aid kit, and so Lindsay ends up taking care of him, probably putting peroxide on his wounds and what have you. So the two of them go on and they talk, I believe, about Sean's body. And Lindsay ends up saying to Aiden, it's like, well, do you really think that he killed himself? And Aiden said, well, he hated himself. When I found his body, I wasn't surprised. And so Lindsay asks, like, well, hey, do you have any other family? And Aiden says, well, I have a cousin, Sadie. She's coming down tomorrow from New York after or for the funeral. Because, of course, Aiden will have a funeral for his brother. So, oh, Aiden says, I haven't spoken to my father in years. So, whoever was to have been the guy that died must have been some connection to Aiden's family, but maybe it's not the father? I don't quite know. But somebody else did die and did get drowned, but I'm not quite sure if it was actually Aiden's father or not. Maybe it was some father. Maybe Aiden had a stepdad. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what transpired into all this, but I know that there was someone from Aiden's family who drowned, and it was all because of Pastor Joe. So but we go on and we have Aiden, who is to also, as Lindsay is to look outside. Aiden goes on to state that that's where they killed her. Uh, Supposedly the fire was originally an accident, but yeah, there's more suspicions that it was actually a murder, but no one in town would go on and admit that. A lot of people would go on and say that she just tripped over a few candles uh, and that she had gotten trapped inside this little place outside the house where it is now just burnt to a cinder. There's only a couple of things that is to go on and be around that certain area left. Uh, so Aiden goes on and says it was retribution. I guess it didn't take much for them to blame her, especially since what they said she was a witch. So we go on to have Lindsay, who finds a couple of pictures, eventually goes on to ask if any of these pictures will actually be of Aiden. And Aiden goes on and looks at the pictures and points out who he was. And he mentions how, I believe, he mentions how his mother was beautiful, and that oddly, when Aiden looks at Lindsay, he can kind of see his mother in her, bizarrely, which is kind of a weird compliment. Um, but also, like, eventually, yeah, that sounds very weird, in my opinion, for what ends up happening between the two of them. But, like, you can go on and say that, like, I think what Aiden was getting there was that, like, his mother and Lindsay like have similar traits, and maybe that's why eventually Aiden could find a girl like Lindsay attractive, because maybe there's also some things in her that are similar to him because of also similar to his mother. So yeah, so we're going that route to make it less weird. So, but now we cut to Molly. Molly is in the shower. She's having a good old time, just cleaning herself off. And so now Aiden and Lindsay are just outside while it's raining, of all things, and they're just letting the rain just pour over them, and they're talking. So we have Lindsay that says to Aiden that she's never seen that side of Dylan before, and we have Aiden that says like, well, hey, like, well, that other side, that must be something then. And they say, when my father died, I was lost. He came. He came to me for the church, or from the church. Uh, Pulled me through a bad time. Uh, Loss brings people together. And we have Lindsay that goes on to says like say like uh it's just that Dylan said something similar recently, and maybe there is a reason why Lindsay's looking at Aiden. It's like, like I really like this guy because he's going on and like he seems like Dylan, but then also he seems like so many other people. So maybe that's why Lindsay can be attracted to Aiden because yeah, there's just something there that's just like, uh, like he's like Dylan in some ways, but then again, he's different in others. So, but moving on here. So, Molly is making her way through her house, probably scantily clad, but I don't care. She looks great. So, Molly's going on to eventually find her doppelganger that appears in a part of the room and eventually is to have some black goop that looks to be coming down her face, making her all weird looking. So Molly ends up getting, of course, very scared and wants to run away from said person. So much so that she's running away from uh she's running away from her doppelganger to make her way to this private property that has seemingly all these boats and all these things. And so Molly will try to go on and make her way to this door that she tries to open that has a reflection on it. And she even gets scared by that because, in all honesty, she should be because the doppelganger is to come and appear through mirrors. Even so that this doppelganger thrusts her way through the mirror to attack Molly, and eventually what ends up happening is the doppelganger grabs Molly, and this door is to break. And so now the doppelganger grabs Molly's arms and just slices uh, Molly's wrists through this broken glass, and that's how Molly dies here, sadly enough. So R.I.P. Molly, sweet, delicious, hot Molly. I'm just joking here. But, anyways, so we now have Lindsay that makes her way back to the home, and both Trish and Roy are asking Lindsay, like, hey, what are you doing? If anything, if I were Lindsay, I'd be like, well, hey, what were you guys doing? I'm sure you won't know how to tell me that, are you? So, uh, we of course have Trish that tells Lindsay, it's like, well, hey, Dylan called, and he says that you uh, were with that Spindle kid. So, yeah, so Trish knows that it seems that Lindsay is with Aiden, so it's like, of course, Trish is not going to approve. And so Lindsay is saying, Trish, it's like, well, hey, did Dylan tell you that he beat up that Spindle kid? Yeah, I think he left that part out. So we go on to have Trish, who's very suspicious of Aiden. It's like, well, hey, did he touch you? Did he what? And like Lindsay's like, I was just there to help him. I didn't do anything else but help him. And even that, Trish is like, well, yeah, like you should have been ashamed of going on and doing any of that. Um, and also treating Dylan the way you do. Uh, and going home with a stranger like that. And one from a questionable family. What has Aiden done so far in this movie that is to make anybody just be like, that's a bad guy? Like, so what that he's to go on and just be like, well, hey, if you believe in God or the devil, like, that's all he's done in this entire movie. He's not done one iota of horrible thing to any of these people besides maybe unleash a curse out into the town, but he may not have gone on and even been that guy who started this whole thing out. Because technically, Sean was the one that did all that. He started off the curse. But anyways, so Trish is to go on and to just basically just say straight up, uh, that since Aiden and his family would reject God, then they reject the town, and that has rubbed the town the complete wrong way. So, uh, and Lindsay goes on and says, like, well, maybe if by this family going on and rejecting God and rejecting the town, maybe they just wanted to be the F alone. Like they just wanted to have nobody that was to go on and and have to answer to or whatever. They just want to just be left on their own devices. And so yeah, so and Trish is like, well, yeah, I'm sure that boy just wanted to get laid, and that's why he brought you to his home. It's like, no, like there was never at a point where Aiden at all was getting handsy with Lindsay whatsoever. If anything, like when we consistently have Roy who's bringing up his big schwanz, that seemed more like anything else of of a way drastic difference between Lindsay with Aiden and Lindsay with a guy named Roy. But anyways, so that's what made Aiden different to Lindsay. Uh, but anyways, so Lindsay doesn't want to talk to her mother anymore because she realizes that her mother is drunk. So Lindsay eventually goes on to go back to her room and then eventually finds her mother drunk. Uh, passed out, or maybe she just fell asleep by the telly. It seems that oddly, there are some late night infomercials going on, but it seems that every time that Trish has the TV on, it's always some aerobic thing. So I don't know if that was the thing that she was actually watching, or that was the thing that she just eventually just fell asleep to, and then the aerobic thing came on because of infomercials late at night. But either way, I don't know why Trish was watching exercise stuff. That doesn't quite make sense to me. Maybe it's the only copyrighted thing that they could get on the movie. I don't know. But we cue Tuesday. So we have Claire. Claire goes on and makes it into her car and drives off, I believe, to school? Yeah, I'll say school. Claire ends up going on and driving her way to school, and she ends up coming nearby dead body, which is Molly. So that ends up going on to have her become next victim, just because I don't know if she actually spotted Molly's dead body or not, but regardless, she ends up becoming the next victim because ratio of her being nearest to the body compared to everyone else. So Aiden had gone on to talk to Lindsay, and Lindsay ends up asking Aiden if he had played the piano, and Aiden said no. But the next thing we see here is that Aiden is playing the piano, so he lied to her. But I think that he probably was maybe shy about playing the piano around her, and that's probably why he doesn't play the piano around her. Because any other time when Lindsay ends up seeing anybody who plays the piano, it's actually just Sadie, his cousin, and he doesn't actually play it. So I don't think also Aiden even goes to school. I just think that maybe he just stays around school, but he doesn't actually go. And that's really actually interesting. Maybe he just kind of just aged out, and maybe once he like is to be seemingly 18, or maybe he just decided on his own to just drop out of school. Anyways, um, either way, so going to transition here. So Lindsay is at class and she's handed this note that falls at her footsteps. Lindsay picks it up and is to go on and immediately have people accuse Lindsay of like, oh, well, you're like a devil worshiper now because you just like Aiden and whatever, blah 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 blah. So, but we don't know exactly what this note is to actually state because the note is to be flashed so quickly that I couldn't make heads or tails out of it. So the next thing we see is both Lindsay and both Claire, and they're at lunch together, and they're kind of talking about the note, but then also Lindsay is eventually talking about Aiden, and Claire is like, "Oh, so like, are you gonna end up with Aiden? Like, what's gonna go on?" And Lindsay's like, "Yeah, I don't know." And so Claire's like, "Well, hey, if you're not gonna go on and end up with Aiden, might as well have him end up with somebody, right? Like, hey, maybe I can go on and maybe I can meet up with him, and maybe I'll end up with him if you're not going to." So but yeah, even Claire was even asking Lindsay if there were sparks, if sparks flew between the two of them. Uh, but anyways, Lindsay, when talking to Claire, at some points also does kind of realize that it's like, well, probably nothing's gonna happen between the two of them, because of just how different they are, and this and that, and but anyways, so we have Dylan that is going on, and is seemingly outside doing this whole speech, talking about the weak will walk away, but the strong will deal with the son of Candace Spindler or Spindle. Uh, Godless hair of a murderous mother. Uh, and this so the further and further that Dylan is talking about this, we have at some point Lindsay that interjects between what Dylan is talking about here, and we have Dylan that says, "Oh, Lindsay, I thought I didn't exist to you," and so here is where we go on. Um, we have Dylan that is to first accuse that all these self deaths are happening because of Aiden and him going on and being involved in this town whatsoever. So and Lindsay is going on and talking about this book, and the two of them, when they are to go on and talk back and forth about this book, they also just say how it's pretty close that, oh, is the Bible just some book? So Dylan goes on and states that the cops had never retrieved said book, that Dylan is to go on and actually have the book that Natalie had, and that he had given the book to his father um, to judge what the book's content actually is. So we'll go on and we'll have to kind of put a pin in that, because eventually we'll have Lindsay and Aiden that need to go to the church to go on and find said book, so that way they can retrieve it, so that way they can reverse the curse. So we have Claire, as I'm kind of back and forthing here. My eyes are just kind of getting fairly tired, and it kind of just helps to have like these glasses on, even though like I don't think these glasses are really clean enough. They just really aren't. I don't know what it is. Uh, Plus, eyes are getting tired. So we have Claire. She's in the bathroom. She's by the toilet, and she's looking at her reflection in the mirror. And so, what kind of doesn't make sense here is we have Claire who's by the sink. Then all of a sudden, she comes out of the bathroom stall, and I was just like, "Is that kind of weirdly edited, funny, or I don't know what they were going with there." But then the next thing we see here is Lindsay. Lindsay makes her way to Aiden's home and is to go on and find Sadie. We have Lindsay that is to say hello, and Sadie is to ask Lindsay. It's like, well, hey, you just I guess assume that you can just come into this house. And Lindsay says, look, well, hey, the door was open, and so Sadie's like, well, that just makes it okay. So Sadie then backs up and asks that. It's like, well, hey, if your pants are open, can I go in? I loved that. That was awesome. Uh, so Sadie then continues on. It's like, well, hey, if you're not here to rob us, then I guess you and I can go on and just start with the intros. So Sadie introduces herself to Lindsay, and so Sadie then goes on and takes the hand of Lindsay, and she like smells it or something. It's very weird. So we have Lindsay that states that she's here to come by to see Aiden, and Sadie says new girlfriend, and Lindsay's like, no, we're not. Like, no, no, no. So Lindsay figures out that Sadie is the new cousin, and that that Lindsay realizes that, like, well, yeah, Aiden mentioned that you were coming for the funeral. So by the time that Aiden finally comes down and he's shirtless, mind you, like, yeah, freaking this guy's just coming down the stairwell and he's just shirtless. And it's like, yeah, check out my shirtless body. Yeah. So Aiden is to go on and tell Lindsay that there's no real time for them to talk because he's going to his brother's funeral. So the next thing we see uh before the funeral is that Lindsay and Aiden are starting to talk about how things are not quite safe right now. That there's been too many self deaths going on. Uh, that everybody is starting to get scared. Uh, so Lindsay's going on and talking to Aiden because she's warning him. And then also that Aiden is starting to get a lot of bruises and cuts for reasons now, instead of them just being because he shaved that day. So, and he's not getting any of them because of pride. He's just like, so, uh, if anything, like Lindsay is really caring for Aiden and wants to make sure that he's safe. So, we have Aiden that says, hey, well, my mother didn't run and neither will I. Uh, so, Lindsay goes on and leaves, and so both Aiden and Sadie, they're both talking. Uh, Sadie goes on and asks Aiden, it's like, well, hey, what the F was that about? We have Aiden that's like, well, hey, she's just trying to warn us. Uh, Sadie says, like, hey, we don't need outsiders involved. And Aiden says, I can handle it. Uh, Sadie says to Aiden, they killed your mother. And you think that they won't come back and try to finish the job by killing the rest of them off. And the two of them both wish that Sean was here. The guy who had died in the beginning of this movie is still alive. He's dead, sadly enough. So we then have Lindsay making her way to the sheriff, going on and asking him about all of the suspicious multi self deaths that have been happening around town. Uh, and weirdly, the sheriff goes on and says that this is a self death hotspot. That just sounded so weird to me, but I guess, like, chain reaction could just be like, well, hey, when one self death happens, then maybe, like, people will unfollow. I don't know. But, anyways, so, uh, but yeah, that could just be, like, one, like, pattern of a thing that all of a sudden just, like, when you look at it, like, you could go on and have like a grandmother passes away, and then oddly, like within a day or days, we then follow up with the grandfather passes away right next to the grandmother. Like, I've seen that happen in my own family. So, if anything, yeah, like occurrence of just death happening in pairs, like that just tends to just happen. It seems so. We also have Lindsay that goes on and asks about Candace and about how she died. And the sheriff just goes on and says, look, well, hey, she died in a fire. And tries to write it off as it was a murder. Uh, but that if anything, also certain people do have their passion. And it doesn't exactly make them murderers. So we have Lindsay that goes to Aiden as he's now at the graveyard looking over his brother. Now we have Claire. Claire is going on and seeing her doppelganger in the road to the point where Claire goes on and is so afraid of her doppelganger that she crashes into this mailbox that seemingly has some of the mailbox go through her windshield. So, what next happens is Claire is trying to get out of her car and cannot, and eventually the car starts to burst into flame and explode. Or, well, it just bursts into flame and then Claire dies. Trish is to go on and watch this whole thing transpire, and guess what? Trish is going to be the next victim. Because she was the only one to have seen Trish die, or Claire die, and then eventually Trish will die some point in the future. Getting less confused? Probably not. So, we have Lindsay and we have Aiden talking here as Aiden makes his way back to Lindsay. Uh, Aiden thanks Lindsay for coming to the funeral and then goes on and is to have Aiden just kind of walk off, hoping that Lindsay is going to follow him. So Aiden goes on to explain to Lindsay that this is a place that his mother liked to go and practice her religion, whatever that means. So that she used to read from a book called a grimoire, which I believe is probably a witchcraft book. And it goes on to explain, yeah, it's a book, it's a collection of rituals, and what um and so Aiden goes on, if Aiden has gone to warn Lindsay, Aiden will do the same to Lindsay. Aiden goes on to warn Lindsay that she needs to move. She needs to get out of town. Because if she does that, then she will not be part of this curse. But he kind of says that in a very roundabout way that doesn't exactly say, yeah, if you stay here, you're going to get cursed and you're going to die. Like, he just tells her, hey, get out of town, get out of Dodge. That's a warning to save you. So, the next thing we see here is the sheriff is to be confronted by Dylan. And so Dylan is going on and talking about how all these deaths will go on to have something to do with the Spindle family. And we have the sheriff that is talking to Dylan as if like, well, hey, there's no real evidence to support that, but okay, whatever like theory you have in your head, there's nothing to really say that that is to actually be true. And we have the sheriff that is to ask Dylan, it's like, well, hey, like, well, um, and what idea of that is to be based on what? And Dylan just says faith. And Dylan says to the sheriff, it's like, well, I don't expect you to understand that. And we have Dylan says that, like, well, the loss never does. So we have Dylan who's telling his people, because now he has people behind him, that this has all started, or this all started with the death of Canis Spindler's youngest son, and no wait, so is it Aiden's father or youngest son? I'm so confused. So maybe the youngest son is to actually be Sean. I'm, I'm trying to figure out the family tree here. Because they go on and they talk about the deaths of people in this movie, and if anything, I probably would have to just rewatch the film again to figure out who all died in this movie. So we have the sheriff that's going on and asking Dylan what exactly he's planning to do, and that he also might want to watch his tone, because everybody just has a problem with people's tone in this movie. I don't know what it is. But Dylan's plan is to go on and go after the Spindles family and just finish them off, because it's not good enough that certain members of this family at this point. Because I don't know, I'm having a hard time keeping track who all died at this point in this movie of the Spindle family. Yeah, they're gonna go on and they're gonna realize that both Aiden and the cousin are the only ones left that are in town, so they're going to be next to be killed. So now, uh, we have Lindsay making her way back to her home, and so Lindsay talks to Trish. So Trish is looking is not looking too good. She's not looking too hot. So Lindsay ends up asking Trish is like, "Well, hey, are you okay?" And Trish is like, "Well, I will be." Then the next thing we see here is both Dylan and Roy arrive. They decide they just want to go on and duct tape Lindsay and drag her off to church so she can be exercised because she really needs some treadmill and some cardio. No, not that kind of exercise. She's gonna get freaking the power of Christ compels you, and try to get that demon out of the side of her, because she's not speaking Latin or she's not doing anything that if you've gone on and ever seen The Exorcist do, Lindsay isn't doing the same thing. But bizarrely, she needs to get exorcismed anyways. But anyways, moving on. So they're forcing Lindsay to the ground, and the priest is going on and putting the ceremony together as if this girl is to somewhat be exercised, but none of this really is to go on and just be like anything but what the fuck? Because this girl is technically to have gone on and gotten kidnapped, and bringing her to this church and having her exercises will all be okay. No, it doesn't seem that way. Could kind of be taking this girl under or out of her control and to be forced to go into this place. But anyways, so Trish is to tell her daughter, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Uh, yeah. So also here is where Trish tells Lindsay that Claire is dead, and then they continue on the sermon, and so on and so forth. So after the sermon's over, Lindsay no longer has tape over her mouth, so she can say whatever the F she wants to. So, as Lindsay is walking back to her room, as Trish is going on and telling her daughter, it's like, hey, we're saved now. Um, like, man, during that whole thing, I saw a vision of the Virgin Mary and this and that. And so Trish is telling Lindsay to say something, and the only thing that Lindsay could really say to her mother is "fuck you," and then she goes to her room. So Lindsay ends up looking at pictures of her and Claire. I'm sure this is a really this is really a horrible, just really just like her best friend died. Like god dang, like if that's not the worst. So we now have to figure out how Trish is going to die now. So Trish is going on and watching some telly, and then all of a sudden the telly is to show her doppelganger within the TV screen. So yeah, so Trish is going to be wakened up by some sounds going on outside. And when Trish does go on and turn off her lights, making her way to her bedroom to go to bed, she ends up getting scared by someone outside. So Trish starts to go on and call out for Lindsay, and Trish ends up going on to get so scared that she makes her way to her bathroom. Not to go on and do anything but grab what she thinks is a jug of alcohol, but instead is to actually be a Mr. Clean uh, bit of like Drano or something that is going to go on and definitively F her body up. So Trish is going on and looking at her doppelganger in the mirror as all of a sudden her mouth is starting to have leaks some blood out of it. So Trish goes on and is to drop onto the ground, and blood is continually coming from her mouth, and she falls over. Guess who finds Trish? It's going to be Lindsay. Lindsay's going to be the next victim. So, as cops appear at the house, Roy, of course, is to make his way to find out that Trish is dead. So, Roy is, of course, at this point very upset because of Trish, his lover, being dead. So we get to a point where Roy is even just yelling at the cops, and they keep telling Roy, like, well, I'm sorry about Trish, Roy. And uh, we have Roy who's like, well, you're sorry about Trish. And so he goes on and he smacks his his vehicles and whatever and what have you, and then he leaves. So the next thing we come to find is Lindsay making her way to Aiden's place. We'll come to find on Aiden's place, it has some spray paint on his door that seemed to have been still wet. Oh yeah, I completely forgot about mentioning this. So after the whole funeral thing, and Aiden and Sadie make their way back to their home, they find out that somebody had uh, sprayed something on their door, and I think it says like hell awaits them or something along those lines. It's some horrible thing. Sadie mentions how wet the paint still was, so whoever did it like isn't far gone. And then Lindsay will go and make her way to Aiden's place, and we have Lindsay that tells Aiden that whatever is to be cursing people is inside her. And she's saying, I have it. What am I going to do? It's inside me. Uh, I'm going to die. It's real. And so we have Aiden that tells Lindsay it's not real. That if anything, like it's all just in her mind. That if anything, she should not go on and try to look at it. Da, 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 da. So, uh, we continue to have Sadie in the background, who's just kind of playing on the piano and just kind of uh, just doing all these goofy keys. And so we have Aiden that looks at Sadie. It's like, come on, like if anything, like yeah, like whatever's happened to her is like nothing to just kind of make fun of. But so here is where Aiden goes on and is to tell Lindsay, it's like, well, hey, what I'll do is I'll go on and I'll do this spell that will go on and try to slow this thing down. It'll kind of be like giving you armor that kind of protects you. But like this can only hold out for so long. So, and he definitely says like, yeah, this won't exactly stop it, but again, it'll just slow it down. So we have Aiden that tells Lindsay, it's like, well, hey, try not to sweat this off because you definitely will need this because it's like armor. So here is where just Aiden just starts to rub all this stuff all over this girl's body. Like, hey, I'll rub it over your shoulder here, then I'll go on and I'll rub it over your forehead, and then I'll basically almost rub it right by your cleavage. Oh, yeah, just don't think anything of this. Just think of it as armor, yeah, or just touching all over your body wherever I want to. Uh, but this moment here is to just be kind of just so seductive bizarrely between the two of them, but like Aiden is trying to convince uh Lindsay as much as possible, like, yeah, this is to protect you, yeah, yeah, or just me wanting to just finally just touch you. uh so after that, so we have them needing to go on and find the book because Lindsay and Aiden eventually go on and talk about the book. So the two of them make their way to the church to try to recover the book, as of course the doppelganger or the curse is starting to follow Lindsay, further getting ever so much more closer to Lindsay as Aiden is telling Lindsay, "Hey, don't look at it. Hey, like just it's all in your mind." Da 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 da. So, and he's going on and trying to convince Lindsay whatever he needs to keep her alive right now. But it gets ever so close to the point to where Lindsay finally does turn her head, and the doppelganger is like right there, right by her face. So we get finally to the point where they do find the book, and so they realize that Sean's blood is at some point on the book. Uh, and Lindsay ends up asking Aiden, so, well, hey, you can do the ritual, right? And Aiden's like, well, I will try. Because what ends up going on with this ritual is we'll come to find out that with the blood of who had probably started this ritual finishing it off, will deal with the same similar amount of blood. So, for having Aiden's family, one of Aiden's family starting off the ritual, someone in Aiden's family will have to finish the ritual. So, if Aiden is going to be the only one left alive by the end of this movie, because that's what will end up transpiring here, Aiden will need to be the one to kill himself to stop the chain of events from curse happening to anybody, and will stop the curse from happening. But we'll see how this plays out by the end of the film once we get there. So, after Sadie and Aiden and all of them leave the church, the next thing we see is Dylan going on and talking to Pastor Joe. So, Dylan is wanting to go on and talk to Pastor Joe because of Aiden's family and wanting to get rid of them. Also pointing out that since Dylan now has Claire's father, and she had recently passed, Claire's father is now with this collective, with this group of people. I believe his name is Paul, but I'm not quite sure. Because at some point there were some credits in IMDb that didn't have pictures connected to whoever, so I'm just kind of guessing here. There was also a girl who I believe had a certain name in the credits that I couldn't connect who she was in the film. Um, so regardless, if that person was a legit person in the movie and I got confused or whatever, yeah, whatever it is, of confusion, shit happens. So, uh, but once Dylan goes on and talks to his Pastor Joe, we have Pastor Joe that doesn't really want to go on and have Dylan go after this family because eventually Joe's past is to have to be revealed to Dylan. Pastor Joe is going to have to admit to Dylan that he was infatuated with one of Aiden's family. I'm not quite sure if it was Aiden's father or whoever it was, but regardless, Joe admits to Dylan that he had uh, a secret affair of some kind with this Aiden family member and then had drowned him after the fact. And so, if Dylan would go on and continue what he's going on and doing, then Pastor Joe will go on and confess of what he had gone on to do. And Dylan is like, well, yeah, go on and go ahead. Like, if anything, the only father that I have is God and Lord above, and da, da, da. So Dylan is to have easily rejected his own father because, if anything, Dylan has faith. So, and that's all Dylan really needs. So I'm still kind of curious if Lindsay got on to try to leave town, if that would have stopped the curse from getting to her. I'm kind of curious if that could have been the make or break thing, because I'm kind of interested to wonder if the curse has something to do with the town location, or if it just has to do with whoever is going to end up being the person who has gotten the curse. Like, you would think the curse would just probably be locational because we had Aiden that tells Lindsay, "Hey, leave town." So is it like leave town before you end up getting cursed, or like, yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. So we have Sadie that comes in on Aiden and Lindsay with a gun. Uh, and I think it's here where we go on and we finally understand, as Sadie explains it, how this curse all started. Because the curse all started with Sadie explaining with Aiden how, like, Aiden was to go on and give the book to Sean, and then Sean started the curse, and how everything kind of led up. So Aiden is somewhat to be the blame for this thing kind of transpiring, but it's kind of like the whole family is to blame. But anyways, Sadie goes on and explains this all here, so we get the reveal, and I think the main reason why Sadie is holding a gun to Aiden is because Sadie wants this whole curse to continue and finish up. She wants this whole town to be wiped out. And Aiden, who is going on and having second thoughts here, it's like, yeah, like, so if this curse does get reversed, then, like, the town is still going to go after Aiden and his family because logically they're to be the ones accused of all these deaths. So, makes a lot of sense, honestly, for probably Sadie to like be whipping a gun out to Aiden and just be like, no, do not reverse this curse. Uh and Sadie goes on and states that burning times are back, and instead of the town burning them, it's time for the town to get burned. So now we go on and we have both so we have Aiden that goes on and is having to forcibly give Sadie the book because she has a gun. Sadie runs off to try to burn the book, but eventually Aiden will save the book from getting burnt. So that way Aiden can still do the ritual. During that time, we have Dylan and his people that burst through the house and are trying to find uh, Aiden and Sadie. The only people they will find is Sadie, and what eventually will happen here is Roy will go on and gaslight Sadie and put a torch to her and will burn her. Roy will go on and state that the reason why he's going on and doing all this is because he at one point was in prison and he had a come to God moment or come to Jesus moment where God had spoke to him and said that he's going to be a soldier for God, and that eventually uh, him being a soldier of God led him to need to burn Sadie here. And so yeah, Sadie does die. So pushing further along the story here. Oh, because we also had Roy that ends up asking Sadie, it's like, well, hey, are you gonna pray with me now? And Sadie's like, no, I won't. And that's when Roy turns around and burns her. So we have Dylan and we have Claire's father who are trying to find both Aiden and both Lindsay. So I got a little ahead of myself there. So Lindsay and Aiden make their way to this pier. Or no, wait, actually, Lindsay makes her way to this pier as she separates from Aiden. Lindsay ends up turning around to her doppelganger, and then Lindsay ends up falling into the water and is to eventually be drowned by her doppelganger. Uh, Lindsay will even get out of the water, and then her doppelganger will try to choke her with ropes that are nearby the pier. Aiden finds Dylan hits him with a gun, and that's where he goes on and does the whole thing of thy pain is thy cleansing. So Aiden now has this gun from off of Dylan. So here is where Lindsay is going on because her doppelganger is so close, and so Lindsay is choking herself. Aiden rushes to Lindsay and frees her from her choking herself and tells her to stop and reminds her who he is. So Aiden goes on and starts the ceremony, realizing that he needs to cut this really quick here, or Lindsay is going to die. So Lindsay ends up asking Aiden how long it's going to take, and so Aiden starts going into the ceremony. He cuts his own hand, he puts some blood onto the papers, and then he goes on to say to Lindsay that the only way that it can really be over is for him to go on and do himself in, to shoot himself. Because Sean gave his life to start the curse, so in reverse, somebody needs to have to be a sacrifice to end the curse. So Aiden gets ever so closer to putting the gun next to his chin. So Aiden goes on and tells Lindsay after Aiden dies that she needs to burn the book. So that way no one can read the book ever again, or use the book. I would go on and say maybe you should keep the book and then have nobody ever read it. Just figure out a way for the book to never be read, but also, yeah. So here's where the two of them go on and they kiss. And then Aiden takes his life afterwards. What it seems to have taken his life. Because the movie gets really interesting by the end here, I feel. Even though a lot of people don't think that. So Dylan makes his way down, and there's a bit of dialogue here that doesn't quite make sense. At first. But then once it's further explained, then it makes a lot more sense about what actually happened here. So we have Dylan that goes on to say to Lindsay that it didn't have to be this way. Do you think that you were meant to be together? Uh, or no, wait. Dylan tells Lindsay that the two of them, he thought that they were meant to be together, that he thought it was God's plan. Uh, and as Dylan has his gun up and Lindsay has hers, there seems that either one or the other are going to shoot one another. And Dylan is running to the conclusion that probably the reason why Lindsay has her gun up is to get revenge on Dylan. And we don't quite exactly know right now why that revenge is happening, but we'll find out later why that revenge is happening. So, because Dylan says you can't let your man's death go unanswered. So what ends up happening here is Lindsay does go on and fire at Dylan and kill him. And so Claire's father goes on and looks at Dylan's body, and then he runs away. So now we have Lindsay that's just kind of left by herself, and then all of a sudden Wednesday happens. So the sheriff and all these CIS guys or whoever these investigators are, they go on and they investigate of course, Aiden's body. So they find out that the bullet wound that Aiden had was not self inflicted, that the bullet was actually from Dylan's gun. Dylan fired at Aiden's body before Aiden shot himself. So Aiden was to have not gone on to have been able to finish the ritual because he died before it happened. So we'll find out that the curse is to not be lifted, and eventually, while Lindsay is burning the book, she will be attacked by her doppelganger and killed off screen. The next thing we'll see after that is an end credit scene that starts to show how everyone in the town got killed. We'll come to find that the sheriff is to have uh, a shotgun or a rifle that is to be by his face, showing that he died. We'll see how the pastor died. We'll see how random uh, people by the I think random children by the playground, they also died, and so on and so forth. We'll see a number of people in the town all be killed in one way or the other. Uh, because yeah, this curse will go on and wipe out this entire town because the curse will not have gotten reversed. So with that said, I'm gonna get the heck out of here because I know that this is an hour and 20-minute movie. I've been talking for almost 2 hours. I also gotta get the heck out of here, so I could probably either do one of two things. I gotta grind on Timu for maybe a few hours or whatever, and then probably fall asleep afterwards, or probably just fall asleep. I'll probably end up just doing that because I'm just like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to be awake enough to still be able to do all that grinding. So with that said, I'm gonna get that out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching this. If you did watch any of this, I'm sure a lot of people are just gonna quickly watch this and then left. That's completely fine because that really still helps out the channel. Views are actually doing really well right now. That's probably the reason why I decided to take a couple of days off because I'm like, hey, things are going well right now. Plus, also, I can always just do some other shorts that people will probably go on and like, or go on and just support in some way just by viewing it because people seem to just keep doing those, and I really do appreciate it. Uh, because I think what people don't go on and understand, regardless of how poorly some videos do, some others do really well. So it's all about if things are just seemingly going in an upward momentum instead of a downward momentum. So yeah, anyways, uh, I'm really just happy where the direction of the channel is going, regardless of the subscription count right now, because that'll go up and down the way it does. Uh, Plus, also, I can completely understand why people may not want to commit to a channel like this just because of just what I just upload and whatever on a daily, day to day thing. Um, it's very random. It's very like you don't know exactly when I'm gonna upload or what I'm gonna upload. So I get it. I completely understand. Uh, the just like I don't know what he's gonna do. So especially if people are to uh, go into the channel because of maybe wrestling content, or maybe they went and subscribed because of YouTube shorts that I've been doing with fitness, or maybe they've gone on to just subscribe because any random number of things, and then I'm not doing content for a number of days. That can go on to be happening also. That people are just kind of like, well, like I won't subscribe until he does content again, and then I'll subscribe. That seems to be a thing that weirdly happens quite often. But so I uploaded. I'm gonna upload a video, so that's good. So I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Thank you for watching this. I really do appreciate it. It's not something that I'm just going on and just saying, just to say it. And I hope that people can understand how much um, enjoyment I have while doing this content. regardless of how, like, a lot of times I'm just so worn out, or I'm just so this, or I'm just so that. Um, I just like talking about movies. I like talking about shows. I like talking about this stuff. Uh, I wish one day that it would end up actually getting to a point where I could do this as an actual job. But that just seems to be not a thing that is to seemingly be anywhere close to happening. Or when it does get close to that monetizing point, I'm just not even going to be really sure if the channel does get monetized or not. Because there's so many iffy things that are going on within this channel that there's no guarantee if this channel is really going to get monetized. So, uh, even with like hoping against hope that I can go on and get 1,000 subs or 1,000 this or whatever, when really I really just at this point just want to continue to hope to find people that will just like films and like shows and like whatever, um, and not have to just be like, oh well, hey, like just sub to my stuff. I'm sure it's like the greatest thing since it's not that great. I can really understand that like my stuff is not that great of a quality and whatever. Like I'm not gonna have any delusions of grandeur and just be like, oh yeah, is great. Like, cause it's not. I think for me, like at least all of my content is to be like most well every once in a random while I'll go on and I'll find some person that is doing some random review. I will admit that. Um, but most of this content is to be done by me. Some even sometimes edited by me. But even that editing is not really that good. Uh, but at least all of it is to be like, hey, I thought about this movie, I researched it, I figured it out, and so at least I'm not going on and having some third party person going on and making my content for me. It's all done by me. It's all to be through and through, just like the whole process of it all, just um, to have all been done. Like, yeah. So, uh, but that isn't to say that I would never go on and not have anyone uh, go on and give me suggestions about things to review in the future. I'm not saying to not have anyone suggest anything. I'm just saying that it is kind of really good that what you're getting here is to actually be uh, from a person that is actually going on and really putting forth the complete effort. That you're going on and seeing a lot of other channels where uh, they don't even know how to upload a video because all they do is they're just a guy or a girl in front of the camera, and there's just a whole other team that is doing the whole rest of the thing for them, and all they just have to do is just show up, which really I can't go on and not say it's like, man, would that be just a sweet gig just to show up and have everyone else just gonna do the rest of it for you. But like it is kind of nice going on and seeing a person that is kind of putting a level of care into like, hey, I come up with this idea, so I'm gonna just put it out there, and regardless of it being good, bad, or indifferent, like at least it's all me. And that's what I can end up just saying is like, well, hey, I put the effort into putting this out there, even though logically a lot of people may not even tune into it still. Like, uh, but whatever. Yes, yeah. Like I'm just putting more of a foot into my mouth more than I probably should, and I probably should get out of here anyway, so it can be under 2 hours. So thank you for listening to the ramblings of a person that is probably going to go on and need to go to sleep soon. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.